Principals, responsibilities. Good faith. Compensation. Fair treatment of third parties. Liability and consequences. Indemnification. Good faith. Principals have a duty to act in good faith with respect to the transactions in which they participate with their agent. For example, if a seller lists a property with a broker, the seller should be willing to sell the property and to do everything they can on their part to get the property sold. Showings, offers, forms, discovery, disclosure. A seller would be acting in bad faith if they listed a home but did not have the right to sell the home. Perhaps an ex-spouse is also on the title and has not agreed to sell the home. The condition of the title may prevent the seller from selling the home. What about buyers? Showings, offers, due diligence, scope of representation. Compensation. Failed transactions for sale by owners. The buyer and the broker proceed to look at homes. The buyer decides on a home which is not listed but is offered for sale by owner. The seller of the home is not willing to pay commission on the transaction. The buyer utilizes the broker to draft the contract, negotiate the terms of the deal, and otherwise facilitate the transaction. At closing, the buyer claims that they will not pay commission because the seller is supposed to pay the commission. The buyer is most likely obligated to pay the commission under the terms of the agency agreement. What if the buyer did not use the broker to assist in purchasing a home which was offered for sale by owner? Ultimately depends on the terms of the agency agreement. Most likely, the agency agreement states the broker is entitled to commission when the buyer finds a home, not when the broker helps the buyer find a home. Both of our buyer examples assume a buyer's agency agreement has been executed between the broker and the buyer. Remember, a client and an agent must execute a written agency agreement before the client obligates themselves on any other contract, such as a listing agreement or purchase contract. Therefore, it is possible that a broker could show a buyer a home for months without a written buyer's agency agreement. If this was the case, the buyer purchased a home offered for sale by owner, how does this change the compensation issues? The broker no longer has a written contract guaranteeing them commission. While the broker would argue that an implied agency agreement existed and therefore an implied compensation agreement, courts prefer to see such agreements in writing. Many brokers and agents require their clients to execute a buyer's agency agreement before the broker or agent works with the buyer at all. This protects the broker or agent and guarantees them compensation when the buyer purchases a home. Some buyers may be leery of committing to a particular broker or agent early in the process. The time of the signing of the written agency agreement is up to negotiation between the parties. Treat third parties fairly. This duty is similar to the duty of good faith. Third parties include other agents, potential buyers, potential sellers, appraisers, mortgage professionals, or anyone else involved in a transaction. The duty would be challenged most often with the other side to the transaction. For example, a buyer may want to treat a seller unfairly. The treatment may not be illegal or violate contract terms, but simply is unfair. Fairness is, admittedly, an objective standard, but all parties to a transaction should strive towards some level of fairness. Liabilities and consequences. When evaluating the liabilities and consequences a principal has in the principal-agent relationship, one must remember that an agency agreement is a contract. The agent has certain responsibilities, as does the principal. If the principal breaches those responsibilities, they are responsible for the damages incurred by the principal. The simplest example is compensation. If the principal refuses to honor the duty of compensation, the agent may sue for compensation based upon the agency agreement. The principal has the same liabilities for failing to disclose material information as the agent. In fact, the principal has a greater responsibility when it comes to disclosure. because the principal is usually in a better position to know details regarding a property than an agent. If a principal fails to honor the duty of good faith in disclosing relevant information to their agent, the principal may be held liable by the other party for failure to disclose. The principal may be responsible for damages resulting from the failure to disclose. If the agent incurs damages as a result of the principal's failure to honor any of their duties or obligations, the principal could be liable for those damages and be required to compensate the agent accordingly.